We now move on to the next session on Indian maritime design, for which we have an eminent panel to include Mr. G. Janakiraman, CEO of its Global Engineering and Technology Private Limited, Mr. Prasad Sawant, CEO, Buoyancy Consultants, Mr. Rakesh Roy, co-founder and CEO, Vedam Design, Mr. David Birwadkar, advisor, the Great Eastern Shipping Company Limited, Mr. Rakesh Singh, Secretary, ICC Shipping Association. The panel will be moderated by Mr. H.V. Ramesh, Vice President and Head Shipbuilding Project Management, Indian Register of Shipping. Over to you, Mr. Ramesh.
Am I visible? Audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for joining in to all the panelists.
Thank you, Padma. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this panel discussion on Indian maritime design. The ship design is undergoing a radical transition owing to upcoming regulations on the reduction of greenhouse gases and other disruptive and innovative technologies, thus posing a challenge to ship designers in making these products, their products and designs fit for future. And this topic, what we are going to talk today on ship design, is the most discussed topic in all forums, which I've been attending to, listening to, and reading about. Conventionally, ship design is based on the vessel's hull shape, engine capacity, to perform at one specific speed and draft, which typically is the contract conditions. This conventional design is being challenged now. The vessel's performance now, including its fuel consumption, multiple drafts and loading conditions, and slow speeds, was never considered earlier. In light of the regulations such as the EEDI, which is Energy Efficiency Design Index for new buildings, and the incoming Energy Efficiency Design Index for existing ships, which is EEXI, and the Carbon Intensity Indicator, CII. With these new things, there is a renewed focus on vessels efficiency. The IMO GHG reduction strategy requires future fuel-ready designs, thereby enabling ships to shift to other fuels without having to undertake major modifications, and the new builds need to be equipped to run on alternative fuel or renewable energies. Further, we also need an optimized hull design, hull shape, and other methodologies to reduce our fuel consumption. Further to this, concepts such as autonomous designs and innovative propulsion systems are also on the anvil. And I'm sure with the various tools that are available, naval architects are looking at navigating these challenges. So today, with this introduction, to deliberate on this topical aspects, I'm joined by the eminent panelists, Mr. David Birwadkar, Mr. Captain Rakesh Singh, Mr. Rakesh Roy, and Mr. Prasad Prabhakar Sawant, and Mr. Janakiraman. Just to give a brief before we go ahead, Mr. David Birwadkar is currently an advisor and is also heading the Great Eastern Institute of Maritime Studies at Lonavala. David began his career with Shipping Corporation of India and has handled many key positions in Valam Ship Management, SR Shipping, Anglo-Eastern, and the Great Eastern Shipping Company. He has a vast experience in handling critical functions on technical, new building projects, procurement, and fleet personnel departments. With 39 years of experience, he also contributes by writing technical articles for the shipping periodicals and speaking at various shipping seminars, both Indian and abroad. Next is Captain Rakesh Singh. He has over 40 years of industry experience. He wears many hats, including ship operator, manager, and he's also a maritime lawyer. He is the General Secretary of ICSA, which is Indian Coastal Ship Owners and Operators Association. The next panelist we have is Mr. Janaki Raman. I think they can show up on the screen. They can switch on the videos, please.
Yeah, they're visible. They're visible.
Okay, I couldn't see it. Yes. Mr. Janaki Raman is the General Secretary for Indian Marine Designers Association, IMDA. Okay, he's graduated from Mangalore and he's got 39 years of industry experience. He's at the moment CEO of the engineering company Fitz Global Engineering Private Limited. He headed the ship design company Vic Sandvik India for 14 years. And he has been instrumental in various designs of research vessels and defense vessels for Indian Navy. Mr. Rakesh Rai from Vedam and Technical Consultancy Private Limited. Rakesh is a naval architect from IIT Madras. He has started Vedam in 2007 and he's handling core design projects at Vedam, which involve ship design, complex modifications, retrofitting, and conversions. Rakesh is also an active member of Institution of Naval Architects and Secretary at IIT Madras. Welcome, Rakesh. And the last panelist in this is Mr. Prasad Prabhakar Sawant. Mr. Prasad Sawant is currently the CEO of Buoyancy Consultants and Engineering Private Limited, which is an ITS company in ERD segment with primary focus on ship design and offshore. He is also a founding trustee of the Blue Economy Hub, which works across the oceans for sustainable development. Currently, he serves on the shipbuilding and startup panel of CII Goa and managing committee of CITEC Goa. Over his 14 years, he has traveled extensively in various countries and has interest in latest technologies. Okay, so with this introduction, I would like to start the deliberation on this panel with Mr. The first question is to Mr. David Birwadkar. Sir, what is the ship owner's perspective on the new regulations of greenhouse gas emissions, and what do you expect from the Indian designers and consultants?
Okay, so good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Good evening, Ramesh, all the other panelists, and all the esteemed guests who are part of this session. And thank you to INMEX-SMM for inviting me to be part of the panel. Now, to answer your question, let me give a little bit of background of what I want to say, and then probably it will also answer part of your question, because that is something which we have to look at. Now, as ship owner, there are many things which we desire, of course, but everything is not easy. So obviously, as you said, the shipyards are considering new designs, and they're focusing on environmental criteria, as we all know, and so are the owners, to make it economy of operational requirements. And as per the latest reports, as we know, the total global emissions, the shipping contributes 3%, but of course expected to rise to about 150 to 250 over the next 40 years. The time has indeed come to overhaul and replace every aspect of the shipping industry in order to reduce its carbon footprints. Designed to include ability to use alternate fuel, use of recyclable material, optimization of design to ensure efficiency and carbon neutrality. CFD or computational fluid dynamics modeling can help to ensure that the design is a workable solution, obviously. In the past few years, maritime industry has seen the green revolution being taken to an all-new level, with some of the finest eco-friendly technologies and vessels presented to the market. These eco-friendly ships, along with ocean-safe practices, I'm sure will drive the industry towards a greener future and also help in reducing the harmful effects of marine pollution. There are new marine engines, of course, being developed through looking at alternative fuels and technology. Shipyards are, as I believe and we know, developing design focusing on minimum emission requirements, and these include alternate fuels, user options such as electric drive, hydrogen cell technology, use of solar and wind energy, and even use of sails. As we also know, and what we have heard and what we have read in various places about the big ship owners having considered projects such as NYK's EcoShip 2030. Now, this is a very bold ship concept, which will take modern shipbuilding to an all-new level, consisting of all types of eco-friendly technologies that you can think of, because they're talking about running on fuel cell technology with solar cells and wind sails. A green ship can't get better than this, I'm sure. Then there is STX Europe's EcoSeas. Now, EcoSeas, I'm told, is a 5-hulled pentamarine cruise ship concept by STX Europe. The ship would use LNG plus diesel, solar and wind energy to reduce the fuel consumption. The vessel, I believe, has the aim of reducing power consumption by almost 50%. Then there's Eco Marine Power's wind solar ship. The Eco Marine Power's green ship project has been in news for quite some time because it's supposed to be the first ship which will use rigid sail with photovoltaic cells. The Eco Marine ship is surely one of the most promising future ships. But having said that, and as I'm heading the Training Institute of Great Eastern, we also need to look at training and awareness among seafarers, academies, and marine schools, because they should be aware of such developments and as and when these are implemented, because the present seafarers and the next generations worldwide are probably at the moment not aware. So they have to become aware. So whenever they're handling the ships, they'll be better prepared. Now, some other concern, which will address probably your question also, established shipyards abroad, South Korea, Japan, China, etc., will not accept owner-suggested designs very simply or easily because their production line gets disturbed. And this is set for mass production of set designs. They also prepare prefabricated blocks so that a ship takes lesser time to build and also more economic. So a standard shipyard is reluctant to take this up. Even if they do it, it will be at astronomical cost to the owners. It may probably be a good idea to build such ships in a less busy shipyards or even in Indian shipyards if they are prepared to build it, and then we can use Indian designers where this will all come in, because we know what kind of technology we have to bring in. The ship designers can help us in setting up the designs and the ships can be built. But of course, I know, and we can talk about it, that the government will need to give a lot of assistance to fast track these projects, because otherwise the reluctance of the ship owners to build in India are due to the several roadblocks which are there. Additionally, remember that when we're building such ships, it comes at a high premium, and such innovations have not been tried enough. So there is a possibility of failure, which again the owner can ill afford. So I'm trying to throw up the questions which I am having an apprehension which the owners will have, so that maybe one of the panelists or other eminent people around can answer them, because these are the questions in our mind paramount at the moment, knowing that that's what is going to be our roadblocks, or that is what is going to stop us from using the designers, or if you want to use them, then how do we use them? So maybe these are the issues which come up on several forums as ship owners, and that's what we need to address. Thank you.
Taking this question to Mr. Roy from Vedam, who is a naval arc, so we'll start with him. Rakesh, Roy, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Ramesh. Thank you, David, sir. So yes, I mean, quite valid question thrown at us, and it's a practical question which all the designers in India need to answer to that. But first, let's understand what has changed since yesterday. I mean, if we see in the past, the regulations were slowly evolving, but now the regulations are changing in every 2 years. In the past, we were only getting the regulation applicable for the keel deck. But now the regulations are showing to the owners that what they need to achieve for next 20-30 years in the coming years. So in the regulation wise, there are quite active changes are happening with a common goal to achieve decarbonization, improvement in the energy efficiency of the overall shipping industry. So that is a quite good change in the thought process, I will say. Similarly, the class has come up with many regulations or proper guideline in terms of alternate fuel usage and all. So for the designers and for the shipyards, the change is that the technology is also evolving. To adapt to this technology, all the vendors, all the equipment manufacturers are coming up with the solutions. So as an ecosystem, I will say many things are falling in right block to give a right solution to the owners. Now, how a designer will come in place here, what role a designer can play. If you see, for a particular ship owner, for a particular ship, there can be multiple solutions or multiple options to go for. but a designer as a naval architect who is an integrator of all the solutions. He will evaluate a right approach depending on the owner's requirement. What exactly will actually fulfill the requirement? The designer will actually take into picture all the operational difficulties, all the route where the vessel is operating, various challenges in terms of crewing and all. So what are the maximum technology advancement we can have? So all these aspects need to be considered, and a designer can give a very good clean slate picture that in a techno-commercial way, these are the solutions which is much fitting to the requirement. Of course, I mean, shipyard can be anywhere, but I will say that if the technology, and as an integrator, as a designer, I will say we are much more in nowadays, we are an integrator of the solutions. If we do a proper integration, and if we can achieve the owner's requirement, then I think the right solution can be given, and the ships can be built in India or China or anywhere. But the ultimate solution is that owners should look beyond a short-term goal with a long-term throughout the life. What is the advantage one can get?
Yeah,
Ramesh, I just want to add to what
I'm coming to you as anyway. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of questions Mr. David threw in, which I thought I will answer. One is the owner is, I mean, they go to a Korean or other shipyards, they are reluctant to use the owner design. This is more applicable to commoditized designs or the standard designs, because it's already built and proven and delivered, and they are not keen to experiment with a new design from the owner, which is a risk for the shipyard as well as for the owner. But when we talk about the regulations, new innovations and new designs, what has been the practice and how the Europe and the other countries have achieved this is the designers have always worked with the owners. They have sat with the owners and seen to that what is a kind of an optimum solution that can suit them. And then the owner and the designer together, either through the designer or the owner himself, goes to the shipyard saying that, oh, look, this is not a standard design. This is something that I want. I want to integrate the fuel cell. I want to integrate the nuclear propulsion if it really needs that. And then we have worked a solution with this. And this guy, you take this designer as a contract to you, and then deliver me the vessel. That's something that the owners need to be willing to do it here. And this particular process is not a free process. Most often the owners are not willing to pay for this kind of solution even before they order a ship. They are looking at this design as one part of the subcontract, not as a part of value addition. The value of a design may be 5 or 6% of the total value of the vessel, but then the value it delivers to the owner is to be realized by the owner and pay upfront for this concept design and then go to the shipyard. This is one. And I also want to answer is another question he asked. It's a huge risk the owner takes with the new design. What is the guarantee the ship will perform or not? I just want to narrate a small story that we went through with floating transfer stations in Goa, with the Sessagoa and VM Salgonkers. The board of Sessagoa asked us, okay, you're putting a new design, a new floating transfer design for us. What is a guarantee that this FTS will perform 2,000 tons per hour? Your design cost is very minuscule compared to my $20 million that I'm going to pay to the shipyard. So as a designer, we gave him a guarantee, a performance guarantee on all the parameters they set. That is number one. And number two, we said, we will supervise your entire new building supervision and see to that the vessel will be delivered in the delivery time that you desire. The third, we also assured him that 20 million is our estimated cost for my design. I will see to that you will not exceed the 20 million. And we had penalties and bonuses for these three clauses. And I must tell you, we took bonus on 2 clauses and we lost out only on the one, that is a cost overrun, slightly went overrun. So it is possible. It is also the mindset of the owners that, okay, let's work with the designers here who are closer to us, who understand our ecosystem, who understand our this thing, and then work to deliver a solution. So there are ways to do this. This is how Europe and the other countries do it. But our Indian design ecosystem came into existence maybe about 15 or 20 years back from the 2006 or 2004 boom of the shipping. So today it is mature to give you a new design and stand guaranteed to that, see to that intelligence.
Okay. Mr. Prasad, you want to add anything to this? Because my question of future-proof design, which is also a point which Mr. David has raised.
Yeah, definitely. First of all, thank you to you for the question, Mr. Ramesh, and also to INMEX and the other dignitaries present here. I think very interesting point what Mr. David has brought out, because as the theme is also what you're saying, that as a ship owner, he is going to the big three, right? So either it is South Korea, Japan, or China, which today are having almost 70% of the market share, right? So when they are having 70% of the market share, what is remaining for the rest of the world is 30% of the global market share. It is pegged that the entire global shipbuilding industry in 2020 was around $130 billion, right? So I think if we have to look realistically as our Indian ecosystem, the designing ecosystem which is there, and for that matter, I completely agree with my earlier panelist, Mr. Rakesh, and also Mr. Janakiraman, that as the technology is quickly evolving and so on, I think realistically speaking, we as an Indian, the ecosystem that we have to look at that remaining 30% of the market share. Because I think to answer Mr. David's point of view and to say that, okay, here is the design, here are the guarantees, because all those things are matured enough system by which even the European designers are working with some of these big three countries. Okay, it is already out there. There are several examples which are out there. But let's say if for certain reasons, it is not still going to happen, because there could be a lot of apprehensions from the ship owner's side and so on and so forth, then I think our target has to be on that remaining 30%. That's what I think is realistic as an industry we have to focus on to start with. That is point number one. And the point number two, I think, is very relevant, that we have to start working together, because even as there is a lot of clarity, as Mr. Rakesh brought out, that the regulations are evolving, classification societies are much more clear about what is to happen. There are a lot of studies. For example, in 2050, the NVJL has done one interesting study where it is talking about 30 different scenarios and what can happen in 2050. In that scenario, it is talking about 10 different energy types, right? And there is no winner. It's anyone's guess, actually. Okay, so I think it is going to be an evolving scenario. That is point number one from the global context. And point number two, from the Indian context, we have to first start catering to that 30% and then slowly move on to target the 70%.
Yeah, so I'll take this question to Captain Rakesh Singh, taking this Indian context. So what are your expectations in terms of energy efficiency and fuels that will be required to operate on the Indian coast? What is the future you are looking at in the next 10 years, and how do you expect the designers of the country to take it forward?
Rameshji, good evening, and good evening to my co-panelists and other participants. Actually, from a ship owner's perspective and being a representative of ship owner, we are the design users. So our interest and interaction starts when the design is put on our table, But down the line, we are more interested in the delivery, the production, the timeline, and the cost, etc., etc. Let's wait after the designers played its role. I'll give you a brief profile of how the Indian coastal fleet exists, the status, and also what we could expect and what actually we are doing. So we have about 1,000 ships in India which are registered as coastal ships. And there's a broader categorization of these vessels. You'll find that many of them are tugboats. They provide service to the ports. Now, once again, these vessels, the performance demand is very high. The burst of performance they have to give when they're berthing an berthing vessel. So all of us who are taking it, buying from the outside. We go one of those standard design with a Robert Elan or, or a Japanese make and model. And as somebody said, that who wants to take a risk, which is a time tested. Though we also see that in India, the smaller vessels, which are less power and all, there is a lot of work going on with the small yards, and we're trying to, come up with a local design. So that innovativeness or that freedom exists. Apart from that, we have dredgers in our fleet. Now, dredgers are either IHC, those who can afford, again, ready to use design, or they are Chinese, built dredgers who are looking for cheaper options. And I understand that the Cochin shipyard has signed an agreement with IHC to build now 2 dredgers in India. That will be a beginning. So there's really nothing much to look forward to as far as Indian designs are concerned in dredging field. I'll come to quickly where we have at the moment tremendous shortage, and that's where the opportunity is. You would be surprised to know that, first of all, 60 to 70% of the coastal vessels are non-cargo carrying vessels. They are service providing vessels like tugs and dredgers. 30% are cargo carrying. At the moment, the industry and the trade that supports us is desperately looking for vessels which are in the range of carrying capacity of 200 to 300 TEU. Because that kind of carrying capacity leads to less debt freighting. And our inventory is 0 in that regard as of today. We have 1,000 plus, but nothing in that area. So some of us ship owners with our local friends like Vedam and the shipyards are trying to develop and come up with design. Again, that is like a fishing in a water, but not knowing exactly what will be the outcome. So that kind of R&D is going on. More interestingly, what the point you brought is we're looking forward to, because see, the coastal vessels or inland vessel for that matter, the competition lies with the railways and roadways. And that's where the fuel cost becomes very, very significant and important. So we are looking forward to how we can, tie up with foreign service providers or manufacturers. We can build the dual fuel engines using alternate fuels in India, and how that can be incorporated in the existing or new designs. Conversion from a conventional fuel to dual fuel is cost prohibitive for a low cost vessel, but a new design, it could be considered. And some work is going on at low level again. The big yards, obviously, the major ones, they don't entertain us, but the small ones are willing to work with us. So that's the status, and that's what I explained you that position is. As far as our understanding, I will be very happy to be corrected. One small deviation from the topic of design, Rameshji, that along with the design of the ship, probably it's high time to start designing equipment in India. Otherwise, we are just importing, everything from China or Korea or somewhere. That's one area that we need to probably also focus attention. Thank you so much.
Okay, so good points that you have raised on the coastal fleet. On the coastal fleet, I think I would rather ask Mr. Prasad to respond to this question.
Yeah, I think what Mr. Rakesh has brought up is pretty interesting. He has talked about certain statistics which are out there. But I just want to bring up one thing, because he said that there has been a concerted effort or a potential demand for 100 to 200 TEU vessel, right, in the cargo carrying. If I recollect correctly, I think somewhere back in 2017, 2018, there was one feeder vessel which was operating between Goa and JNPT. It was by the Chogules. It was a 200 TEU vessel. I think maybe 120, 140. I don't recollect exactly how many TEUs it was, but it was in that range. What I understood back then, it didn't sustain. It didn't work out. And that design was actually was brought out from an European market, and it didn't work out. I mean, eventually, because of the business economics, it's not that the design was a problem or something like that. The business economics didn't work out basically. So I feel that what is happening in the Indian ecosystem or the Indian context, it is very important to sit down with the ship owner and to understand the costing dynamics, right? I've been part of certain sessions and even locally via CII, we have been talking a lot about the port charges, the feeder charges, the priority that are being given to such kind of vessel. Let's say a coastal, the same feeder vessel which was there, the way the priority was getting assigned to it versus the other large cargo carriers was a challenge. The custom clearances and so on. So I think which end of the day becomes a whole to the operator, to the ship owner, right? So I think this dynamics has to be also factored in. Which will need certain amount of policy support. When I say policy support, I'm talking about from the operational aspects. Of course, a lot of these things are changing now rapidly, but I think the cost aspect in terms not only the capex but the opex should factor in, and I would say a good design should cater to these aspects. So it's pretty interesting to see that there is a demand which is coming up, but then it will be also interesting to sort of analyze that specific feeder case further, what went wrong in that case, basically.
Rameshji, I'll just quickly add to what Prasad has said because, it's interesting. Prasadji, the vessel that you're mentioning, that vessel and that is the only vessel which is available for carrying container on the coast. And that 20 remains one vessel, is the River Sea Type 4 vessel. And that's about 120 somewhat capacity. What we have now in last couple of years have found that the capacity optimum, as you said, what happens for us is like two things happen. One is a fuel cost, which is a cost surmounting cost. And second thing, we can't afford dead freighting. If I suddenly bring a 800 TEU vessel and I am able to provide only 400 container per voyage, then that business is not a business. So last few years, particularly on the East Coast and our integration, trade integration with Bangladesh, that our integration that we have signed an agreement with Bangladesh that both the countries can, operate vessels. And soon the BIMSTEC tie-up that we have discovered that the East Coast is booming in demand. And the right size going, as I said, is about 250 to 350. 100 is again not viable. So this was an effort made by them, and particularly on the West Coast, where things move in a different direction. But the East Coast had the advantage of Bangladesh and Myanmar with it, within the Bay of Bengal and lots of other Indian ports. So that's a very visible demand. I mean, there are vessels, but as I said, inventory still remains the one chocolate vessel. Thank you.
Point taken. So I will, it's a good point that you said that there's a demand for 100 to 200 TEU vessels on the East Coast and policy support is required. See, to develop this whole ecosystem, we need to have innovation and innovative designs. Now that we will have to have vessels with less dependent on fossil fuels and new technology that we have to take in. So how do we go into this innovative designs? This is what Mr. David also has raised this issue in this. So I would actually take this to Janaki and then to Rakesh. Roy.
Thank you, Ramesh, for that question. Yeah, the innovative designs, the question comes like everyone wants an innovative design, and we are shipowners are very happy to grab one when it is available in Europe or outside. But if you look at the ecosystem and if you look at how the foreign countries have developed innovative solutions, it is by joint industry collaboration. The moment you say innovative design, the moment you say I need innovative fuels, alternate methods. I mean, we talked about several introduction of new technologies. These things are not going to come from a designer on his own, sitting on his own. It comes from joint industry collaboration. For example, I recall 20 years back, the fuel cell experiment together with Wärtsilä, Vic Sandvik, and then several of the companies. They joined together. The big industrial ship owners, the big industry corporations, they came in and then they started together with the Classification Society, DNV. They started a project targeted towards innovation, towards fuel cell as an auxiliary engine. They targeted 1 kilowatt that time 20 years back. Today, the fuel cell technology has come somewhere else. But then what I mean is, if we need innovation in new ship design, it will come, but it has to be funded by someone. And this funding typically happens with either with the Ship Owners Association like INSA and the IMDA and the big industrial corporations together with the government of India. In India, we always have this attitude of go to government, and government needs to fund all this innovation. To me, government is only one part. The major part is a user, who it is going to be useful for. It is a ship owner who it is going to be useful for. So these stakeholders in this entire process need to come and then invite the designers, maybe 1, 2, or 3, and then let's jointly develop with standard sets and goals. By 2 years, I need a green ship with such and such and such a performance. Then you have a design on table together with the classification society. Then you can, the consortium itself can put money to experiment on it. And if it becomes, then it becomes a standard design. This is what I feel is one way that we can proceed.
Okay,
Right.
so
Right, sir. So basically for the innovation, a requirement of proven design is a killer. So, I mean, in my opinion, when we say proven design means it is some ship which is just floating, some ship which is just carrying cargo, and just it is operating. So now I think things are changing. The owners doesn't want just a ship which is just floating in the water and making some speed. Now the requirement has completely changed. The owners have various options of fuel, various options of propulsion, and their requirement also has the challenges are completely different. Some vessels are very ultra shallow draft. Some vessels are operating in a very harsh environment. So considering these things, I think we as the Indian designers, we have overcome up to some extent many of these challenges. I mean, just for example, if as Vedam, we have done a gas CNG propelled tanker in Nigeria 7-8 years back. So already these kind of challenges are being overcome in various parts of world. And we as a designer, we are trying to sit across with the ship owners. I mean, Captain Rakesh Singh will also know that we as a designer, we want to know what is the basically requirement from the owners. And then the solution of the ship comes in picture. It is not that we want something like 3,000 or 4,000 deadweight vessel and off the shelf something which fits, just build it and operate. Each project may have different challenge, and each project to optimally address the commercial, eco-commercial requirement, we can come up with a very accurate design which will address the owner's requirement. I think that is where we can help it.
okay, I'll take this to Mr. David. Given the present ecosystem in India, what happens? This is also a question on the forum. The ecosystem, how do you balance bigger vessels design on a long haul? I'll take it to Mr. David.
Sorry, can you just repeat the question?
I'm just saying, in the present ecosystem that we have, with respect to design, if we have to design, what are your expectations from the designers, okay, to build and design bigger ships in India?
Yeah, so I mean, basically, first of all, we'll have to look at the existing fleet and see what changes we can bring in to reduce the consumption, to abide by the requirements of the regulatory laws, of IMO or whatever else is there. So probably there will be some modification which can be done to the existing ships and bring down the EEOI and run the ships till a particular age where they can be scrapped. For the newer designs, obviously, we would like to look at the newer innovations, because ultimately we have to be competitive. We can't just say that I will use the innovation, it will bring down to 50%. But if the cost is phenomenally high, then I can't get the kind of charter to sustain myself, because of course we are running a commercial outfit. So obviously, whenever I'm talking about innovations, etc., I will have to look at it very subjectively, that whether it is affordable for me when I build a new ship, and whether after that I can sustain the asset with me based on what kind of charter rates I can get, etc., etc. Because ultimately everything is market driven. Secondly, to put a point forward, we know that when we talk about Maersk or NYK, their projects are funded by the government or by other partners who are there, who are probably helping them out with the finances. Because it's impossible for a single owner to just look at it. Somebody said that INSA has no money. Let me just tell you, INSA is working on minuscule annual fees from the owners, which is really, I can say, deplorable to that extent. If there was huge funding available or huge reservoir money, then obviously INSA would have been very happy to support it. INSA, all the owners are already putting pressure on them to reduce their annual fees. So, I mean, there is something, I think India, we have to still come or accept such things that we have to take this forward, or we have to initiate this, because that understanding is still not there. They said, "Aaj ka din chalne do, kal baad mein dekhenge," something like that. So that's the thinking which we have to change. We have. Sorry. I'll just complete. So I know we have all the talent in India available, and we can really take it forward to the next level. And of course, we can then work in hand with the designers and even the shipyards in India. But everything has to fall in place. See, for an owner, everywhere, if I have hurdles and roadblocks, and if I project which is supposed to be done in 15 months, it will go on to 30 months or 35 months. I'm losing a lot of money. And I have a finite resources to look at. I have my board of directors. I have my shareholders who will have to, I'm answerable to. So I can't just do it just because I want to be innovative. So that's the practical aspect which we'll have to look at whenever we talk about such things as owners or Indian owners, when we want to be marketable or competitive in the world.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, David. Rakesh ji, आप कुछ बोलना चाहते थे?
Yeah, so basically large commercial ship design approach will be a little bit different than what we are discussing. So large commercial ships, which are quite long, quite large size, it requires tremendous effort to come up with a innovative design and to present to the owners. So the solution to this thing can be, we can follow the Korea also, where all the shipyards combined and designers combined, shaken hand, and they created a consortium where the requirement was specified, and they developed a ship. They developed series of ships which can address the industry's requirement. I think that kind of collaboration is required from the shipyards, from the owners, and from the class. And always the designer group is there, as you can see, IMDA. So we have a very good, strong designers group where we can address such kind of large scale problem as well. We have the expertise. Only thing is that we have to come together and address it. Yeah, Captain Rakesh.
Yeah, Ramesh, the more I hear my co and so I, develop this belief that in the Indian context, the on-ship design, the entire ecosystem of which is design, construction, policy intervention, finance, etc., demand, whether business demand is there or not, challenges from overseas, etc. So in isolation, that subject, whether it will reach to its logical conclusion or arrive at what we intend to do may not be possible. The entire ecosystem of ship construction and the requirement.
Mr. Rakesh, we are losing you in the middle, so I will.
Yeah. Maybe can I add a point, Mr. Ramesh?
Yeah, go ahead.
So basically,
I just only request that let us be brief because we are, I think, running over now on the time part. Yeah.
Right. So I think I just want to add one thing, because I think clearly, there are very practical points that have been brought out, like when we talked about both contexts, right? We talked about coastal shipping, let's say, and we also talked about large ocean-going vessels and so on and so forth. And we have to look at it practically. I think one of the takeaway that we should all repeat of this session is proven design is a killer of innovation. Okay, that has to be number one takeaway, because if you see today in our Indian ecosystem, everyone is asking for a proven design. If you just want a proven design, you're killing innovation, period. That's exactly how it's going to work. Now, what does it mean, right? Because if you want to have innovation, it is very important that your economics should make sense. And that is what Mr. David is trying to say, that end of the day, there is a commercial trade and the business has to make its own sense, basically, right? I think let's look at what is happening in other economies. There was a good example regarding what's happening in South Korea. Let's look at also in Europe, because you have to understand one thing, South Korea, China, and Japan, the shipbuilding ecosystem or the industry has born out of a huge subsidized machinery from the government which was there. That is how their shipbuilding ecosystem took birth, right? So now we are not looking into that. We are not talking about how the shipbuilding subsidy is working in India. That is not the present form of discussion today, but of course there has been some movement in that direction and positive movement in that direction which has happened in India, and we have to acknowledge the the efforts on the regulatory side on that forum. But let's look at what is Europe doing to still keep its edge, because shipbuilding today is not happening, but then at the same time no discussion in the world is negating Europe. Just because they are not having 70% market share anymore, it doesn't mean Europe is not a factor anymore. In fact, they are still the governing factor in various aspects. And the important point which Mr. Rakesh also brought, the design of products, the innovative technology that's happening and so on and so forth. And that's what is happening. Now, if you look at some specific schemes, even today, as we speak over here, there is some scheme known as Project Horizon, which is there, wherein they are literally funding out new innovative technologies. There is a segment in the shipping side, basically. Okay. So what the quick point that I want to bring up is, so how do we solve this chicken and egg solution, wherein everyone understands the benefit of an innovative design, but no one is ready to take a risk? So what is actually happening in the world today is that is where some regulatory support is coming in, and that regulatory support is given at an industry-wide level. So let's say if there is a new design which shaves off that risk of innovation, right? Then then what are the dynamics for a ship owner, for example, right? So
Okay.
so a framework like that can be looked at, and most importantly, industry collaboration is the way forward. And I just want to add another point as far as capabilities in India are concerned. I mean, just to give an idea, buoyancy consultants today, we are working on the first electric vessel that is coming up in North American market. It is coming under ABS classification. We are working closely with the USCG, US Coast Guard, and all those guidelines that are coming up. And it is the first of its electric vessel which is going to come up. So I don't think that the capability, there is a lack of capabilities in our Indian ecosystem. IMDA is there and all the members are equally capable. What needs is some kind of a bridge that needs to be built up to bring it together on all aspects.
Yeah, thank you about that. What I will do, I'll take one last question, which is actually connected to what we are discussing. The last question, what I will do, I'll start with training. See, with this future fuels, future design, we are looking at, one is, we fully agree that proven design is a killer for innovation. And if innovative designs come, and with the emissions under control, with all that, with new fuels, renewable energy, all that. See, we also require what is called training of ship designers, training for other engineering sectors. So this, I would start with David, then I will go to IMDA, and then we will have a conclusion of this panel discussion. David.
Yeah. So I'll limit myself to training in pre-sea or even existing seafarers, because we don't deal a lot with naval architects and other aspects. So what we know, that we have a department where we get all the latest information from the market, and this is filtered in the Great Eastern Shipping Office, and that filtered information is then passed on to the institute for giving it to the students at various levels. Similarly to when we do the value-added courses like performance enhancement courses for the senior on the ships, like masters, chief engineers, and also for superintendents, we filter this information, and there are regular meetings for such people when we do it. And for the course curriculum, we add to the course curriculum, or separate sessions are done when we talk about new innovation, the new requirements, the new regulations, and what is being done and where the market is at the moment, and where Great Eastern as a company is as far as using this technology is concerned. So we are doing it on a regular basis, and I'm sure a lot of other proactive owners and institute who own institutes are doing the same way. That the such information nowadays is very transparently passed on to the people, so that everybody is up to date with what is happening in the world, rather than just sticking to the conservative steam engines, four-stroke engines, etc., etc., etc. You know, we do that, and we try to make them aware. Also, we know that social media also is a big help in this, but we do are in our structured way. So I think it's very important to keep everybody abreast of this, including training the faculty, because ultimately if the faculty is not trained, faculty is not aware, they will stick to the age-old norms, and that will not be passed on to the student. So I think very, very essential, very, very important, as you rightly said, Ramesh, and has to be done in a much more aggressive way. Thank you.
Yeah, I think on the training of the ship design ecosystem, ship design people, it's a very important aspect of training of these people when they come for job. Very often we see that the fresher or the guy who comes from college, most other industries are able to use them with a little bit of training. Whereas in ship design, many of my colleagues will agree that we need to train the guy who comes out of college at least for 1 year in several of the disciplines before we can put him to use to produce a single meaningful design or a drawing. That's what is actual situation today. Of course, many of my colleagues are in the school boards. We are trying to sensitize the maritime universities, IMU and AMET and many of the universities to the gap in this knowledge and the training when they come into industry. But we also have an actual problem in the industry. See, the trained manpower with these design companies, they don't come very cheap. For example, you have a 10-year or 15-year experience, naval architect in your company or a machinery engineer in your company. You need to handhold him for several years. And then he needs to train and retrain the other guys. It's not coming easy. This is where we are looking at support of the government. Because it is not easy to pick up people for ship design from outside and bring it to ship design. Ship design the industry is really unique. The guy needs to have a passion, and then the guy needs to learn regulations. The guy needs to know the rules, decides the fundamental engineering principles before he can produce a single drawing. As a classification society, Ramesh would agree. You see several drawings that come from several of the companies, and you see the discrepancies between each one of them that comes. So here is where a strong training system and ecosystem is required, even for the current designs. And we are talking about training for the future designs. Training for the future design really needs the experts and stalwarts in this industry to start a concentrated skilling program together with the government. Only government can support this. It's very difficult for the individual companies. Ship design companies are medium industries, a very big industry, very difficult for them to invest in futuristic, innovative design training without the visibility for any revenue sharing. So here is where we are looking at regulatory government support to do this skillful training. I hope the message goes to the government, and we have been also talking to the Ministry of Shipping.
Okay. My next question, which is I'm taking from the forum where the question has come. Today, this I think I will pose it to Mr. Rakesh Rai, that the question is this: today, even existing vessel performance can be monitored by using digital technologies. So, whether Indian ship owner or shipyard or designers are equipped and ready to adopt by investing in this technology?
Yes, the short answer to this question is big yes. Yes, we are equipped. So already we are implementing this thing in the existing ship and in the new build ship as well. So technology can be in a various ways in terms of monitoring the performance and giving a feedback that how the performance can be improved. Also, the technology can be used in a way that how the ships can be experienced, how the information can be shared, how that data can be transferred and utilized, how the overall inspection regime can be established. So the technology is being applied in various fronts. Already we at Vedam, I'm sure at other design companies are also using it. There are various tools which actually actively monitor the fuel consumptions, performance of the vessel, and suggest that what can be improved and what are the bottlenecks of the design. So these are the technologies already available, and we are using it.
Okay, Prasad, you want to add something to this?
Oh, I think I just concur completely. The answer is big yes, and options are all out there on the table, and I think we have a good ecosystem to adopt this digital technologies which are available.
Okay. So just to conclude this panel discussion, we are, I think, 15 minutes overrun. We started 10 minutes late, so we are actually 5 minutes overrun. Okay. So I thank all the panelists for this wonderful insight and the discussion that we had. The topic is a very vast topic, starting from the fundamental problems that we have, like you using proven designs to innovation and how that kills and all that. And it's a very short span to discuss this thing, but I hope we covered most of the points. At least we have touched upon most of the points that have been set as an agenda for this discussion. Just to sum it up, to start with what Mr. David has started, decarbonization in shipping will be through alternate fuels, hydrogen, ammonia, or methanol, or renewable energy sources such as biofuels, wind and solar. The maturity of these technologies, as well as other technical measures, okay, and operational measures such as cleaning, coating, hull repairs and things like that, trim optimization, is going to take us to the next level of compliance to the new regulations that are coming in. The new building designs, as we are talking about, when we talk about innovation, we're talking about new building designs, which I opened the discussion with, is future ready, where we are looking at even coastal vessels to be on probably LNG for some time and then move on to other renewable energy sources, which is, as Prasad has stated, is the jury is still open. Which fuel, what fuel, and how it is going to work is still open in the discussion. It's still not frozen. Then from there, taking to a good thing that has come from Captain Rakesh is that which the designers, including myself, who being a naval architect, should consider is having designs of 100 to 200 TEU vessels. At the moment, there's only one, so there's a huge scope for developing this, which probably the designers, the owners, and the shipyard should sit together and try to see how to get this through and how to get incentives or funds from or policy support from the government going forward. Coming to the training point taken, training has another aspect to it. That is, when people have passed out of the college, we are still going through our same old principles of naval architecture when we are in the college. I read the same thing, and I'm sure Janaki and seniors here would have read the same thing. The fundamentals may not have changed, but a lot of things are changing. The safety is important when we are considering alternate fuels and renewable sources of energy like hydrogen, ammonia, and things like that. So we need to train our the younger generation, the younger naval architects and other disciplines about this and bring them into the fold. Otherwise, they will be left out of this in the global world. Coming to digitalization and its uses, I think we are there. We are working on it. I think class societies are working on it. The designers are working on it. So I think we pretty much will use the IT backbone of this country to leverage and arrive at a global platform in near future. Having said that, thank you all. I think there are only these questions which I have received there, which we could discuss. Thank you all.